Good evening, and not good morning. It is 11:16 on a Thursday night. This is kind of an impromptu video. I don't usually do videos like at night. I used to do when I used to work a few years back. I used to work nights, and I would typically get home at about 9:30, quarter to 10, and then I'd usually like take a shower and have crack open a beer and do a video. And I used to do my Film Fanatic videos then, and that was back when I used to just do probably about 3 years ago now, which is crazy. Back when I was mainly doing just Facebook Live videos, but every now and then I'll do a video if I'm feeling energized or feeling like there's something that I want to talk about. And so once in a while I'll do a show at night. Now my schedule is like totally different now, so I typically do my videos for the channel in the morning. Usually, like after I've gotten up, after I've been up for a little bit, and I've had some coffee, I usually kick around with ideas. But tonight is a little bit of a different thing. I just came back from a really cool event that I was really curious about, if anything, more just out of pure curiosity. But I was actually looking forward to the whole event, and it was really cool. It was better than what I thought it would be. I thought it would be fun, and I thought it would be cool, and it was, of course, it was centered on one of the greatest horror movies of all time, 1974's Black Christmas, which of course is the main the main attraction, the main thing as to why I drove up to Bangor. I drove up to Bangor, Maine tonight, and got home just about 10 minutes ago, and I kept thinking about the whole event and the movie itself, which is, you know, just such a classic. And I was like, this it was better than what I thought it would be, because I thought, it's interesting finding people that are into, or finding events that really, kind of speak to your heart, as far as your tastes. It's kind of it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to find. Like, I don't know. I do and I don't. Like, when it comes to, say, electronic music, I do know a lot of people that like it, but it's pretty hard to find. There used to be, back, years ago, there used to be many more events with that style of music, or with DJs. And now it's like few and far between. There's not a lot of jazz shows or concerts really around in the area like there used to be, or jazz jams even. And when it comes to like my love of, the deep cuts of horror or exploitation, it's pretty rare to find a lot of those kinds of things. The coolest thing that happened years ago was the Waldorf After Dark, and that's a really great thing. That's been going for about 3 or 4 years. Gotten to become pretty good friends with Sam, and Buffy, who run that down in Waldoboro. They show a lot of super low budget B movie exploitation movies. Actually, this weekend, Saturday, the day after tomorrow, they're going to be showing Eyes Wide Shut, the Christmas for Christmas, which I just think is fucking amazing. And I'm definitely going to go to that. So, but tonight I was really impressed. I was impressed with the whole thing, and I kind of wanted to, like. It made me think a lot about, um, generational things. With just as a whole, like where the horror genre kind of is, and I came away from the whole thing feeling really positive. Mainly because it's interesting because, like, well, first and foremost, like, I heard about this whole event through about a month and a half ago. I played a gig. It was right around Halloween. I played a gig with a band that I really, really love. I love playing in this band so much. Osmia. We played at this really cool venue that's also a clothing shop called the Red Rabbit Bazaar, and it's a like a vintage clothing shop. But then they also have lots of events, lots of music events, lots of bands playing inside the shop itself. They also have DJs play there at night, sometimes in the downstairs. And it's a really cool spot. I mean, it's got a big upstairs, and then the downstairs, it was where they had the movie and where they have dance parties down there. But it's a really nice big spot. Cozy, it's warm, nice lighting. So again, that was my first interaction or encounter with this place. The Red Rabbit Bazaar was when we played a gig there, and then like about a month or two ago, or I should say, a few weeks after that show, I looked them up on Instagram, and Cara, the owner, I've known her for a very very long time, and so I looked them up on Instagram, and I saw that they have all these events, but then I saw that they have a like a monthly event called the film club, and I was like, wow, what is that? And I looked at that, and then I checked out that they had their own kind of film page, and it's called the film club, and it's at the same exact location. Tonight was in the downstairs, and the first movie I saw that they had listed that I was aware of, because I think they've only been doing it for a few months, was Bill Luswig's Maniac, which is my all-time favorite slasher movie of all time. I love that movie to death. So I was like, holy shit, what? Because I don't know. I mean, in the circle or in the world of horror and slasher movies, especially, that movie is really popular, but it's super underground too. Not a lot of people know about that movie. Not enough people have seen that movie, but that movie to me is just a pure masterpiece. And when I saw that they were showing that, I was just like, "What?" It kind of really surprised me. Um, because that movie is brutal as fuck, and it's like it's the real deal. Like if you love slasher movies, like it's the real deal. And I saw that they had that there, that they were showing it, and I unfortunately I wasn't able to go, so I was super bummed out. And then I looked, kept looking, and then a few weeks ago I looked again at their Instagram page, and they had it listed for that they were going to be showing for tonight Black Christmas, the original one from '74, directed by Bob Clark. It's a Canadian movie starring Margaret Kidder, and I was like, holy shit, I'm there. I'm definitely going because I think when it comes to the slasher genre and just horror in general, horror exploitation movies, low budget uh, horror exploitation movies, slasher movies. I really think that Black Christmas is one of the most, if not the most important slasher movie ever made because it really, really kind of cultivated a certain style of what makes a slasher movie a slasher movie. There are always elements, especially in the Italian films like the Giallo films that kind of predated Black Christmas, especially like Dario Argento, but also Sergio Martino. Where there were a lot of Giallo films that came out, but there was elements of slasher, definitely big time slasher elements in it. And then even Herschel Gordon Lewis, those films definitely had those kinds of elements as well. But I think with Black Christmas, it really was like this formalized, uh, almost where it's like a definitive blueprint on like what the slasher genre really is. It had all of the tropes and everything you want and everything you need for that kind of experience. It wasn't just pieces and you know, certain aesthetics from what you know to be a slasher film. It was a fully realized slasher film. So I feel like in that regard, it's for the genre, which is my favorite genre of all time. It's really the most important one. I really do think. I really do think it is the most important slasher movie ever made. I mean, literally, if it wasn't for Black Christmas, the entire, and I guess, and I would say it's influenced many films, but the biggest thing that it had was the creation of Halloween and the Halloween franchise, which is probably worth, I don't know how many billions of dollars now. Without Black Christmas, that franchise would not exist. So, and John Carpenter said that in many interviews. Um, that he was friends with Bob Clark, the director, and he took direct inspiration for Halloween from Black Christmas. So, which came out in the late '70s. So, '78. So it's pretty amazing. I had a long time ago. I've done a few shows on Black Christmas. There's a remake that came out a few years ago, which is an utter. It's unwatchable. It's a complete train wreck. It's a disaster in every way. Would not even waste your time. Um, but I've done a few shows on Black Christmas, and my history with seeing it, like I remember seeing it as a kid, but it wasn't until like maybe 3 or 4 years ago that I saw it again, and I bought this really beautiful Blu-ray edition of Black Christmas, and I've watched it. It's at a point now where I've probably have lost count on how many times I've seen it since I've bought it. Because I know I saw it probably at least once when I was a kid, but that was really it. So it really was this kind of awakening of like, wow, okay, this is how that genre really kind of started. This was like the catalyst or what really created the slasher genre. It's wild. And to think that it came out in '74, it was great. And so I went there tonight, and they basically, I didn't know what they were going to do. They had the whole event downstairs, and they had it advertised as like, because I knew it wasn't going to be like a movie theater, so I was curious if they were going to have like a big TV or they were going to project it, because I knew it wasn't going to be in a theater. And in the advertisement for this event tonight, it was like $5 donation. I wasn't sure if they were going to show a DVD. I wasn't sure if they were going to show a Blu-ray or 4K version. I didn't know what to expect, or just stream the movie. So it was downstairs in this really cool space. They had all kinds of really cool furniture, chairs, plenty of furniture, plenty of chairs. In the flyer and in the advertisement, they were asking people to bring their own chairs and to like donate a snack along with a $5 tip kind of a thing. So I just brought some beers, and I bought a bag of popcorn, and a lot of people brought all kinds of food and snacks. Like people were eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and then somebody next to me was eating peanut butter and jelly and animal crackers, which was kind of funny. And there was quite a few people there. I mean, it's a pretty small room, but I'd say there's probably like 20 people in this room, and it was pretty packed. And they were going to show the movie on I think it was going to be a Blu-ray, and they had a projector, but the movie didn't get there in time, so what they had to do was stream it. And I'm not a big fan of streaming, like most people know. But they had a giant TV. They had this big, huge fucking TV in the basement, which I didn't expect. And so that was nice. So it actually looked pretty good on this really big TV. But usually they have a projection set up, and they usually project the movies on the screen, which would be really cool. And the feeling that I got was that most people there had not seen the movie. I met the girl who was running the whole event. She seemed wicked cool, and I met a couple people there that seemed really nice. But the vibe that I got was that most people that were there had not seen the movie. The other factor that was really encouraging and really positive was I was by far the one of the oldest people there, and they were all there was like all a bunch of high school kids there. There was a bunch of 20 something year old kids there. It was wild, like, and they were because when you figure this movie is 74, it's old, like me, and it's old school. It's the old school horror slasher genre. And these kids, from the vibe that I got and the feeling that I got from tonight, and from what I heard people talking about, because people were talking about the movie afterwards, and the general vibe that I got was that a lot of, or I would say most people that were there had never seen this movie before. And it felt like everybody was totally into the movie. Like everybody applauded. People laughed at the jokes because Black Christmas is as dark and as atmospheric as this movie is. It does have a lot of great humor in it. There's some really funny moments in it, and it's kind of raunchy and it's pretty sleazy, especially with the phone calls that happen, which are just so completely insane. And people were into it. People were totally into it, and it was cool. It was really cool. And the thing that I thought was so cool was like, and I try never to do that kind of thing because I think ultimately when you generalize and think, oh, these people just like that, or these people will only listen to this kind of music or whatever. Sometimes you will always be surprised and realize that you can't really judge and you can't really generalize a particular age group or a particular demographic, what have you. Because I often feel like, now there's like, there's all these subgenres of music, and there's all of these different things that always have these labels. But what I find now is like you can't. Anytime I've been in this place of where, oh, those kids won't dig this kind of music, or these older people in this kind of in this age group are not going to dig these kinds of movies. And and in some ways you know that can be true. But I've found in my experience, pretty much and pretty consistently, which I always gives me, I guess, hope, if you want to call it that. Most times when that's ever happened to me, and I try not to be judgmental about those kinds of things or generalize people, I've been there's been more times where I've been proven wrong that that's not true, and I love that. I love to be proven wrong. I have no problem with that, and I don't take it to heart, And so this was one of those situations. Because, the way the media portrays things, or like, I mean, because arguably when you look at, say, horror movies in general, right? Like right now, the horror genre is probably, I mean, in commercial terms, on a commercial level, is probably bigger than it's ever been. So I mean, when you think of within the last 2 years, 2024, 2025, going into 2026, just within these 2 years, the amount of horror movies that have come out is kind of staggering, and some of them, the amount of money they make, and granted, some of these are on very much a commercial level, but then you have films like that are super low budget. Well, I mean, most notably would be Terrifier, which I'm not really a fan of, but typically I would think, and then another movie that is super low budget that made a deep financial, was huge financial success in a violent nature, which I actually really love, and that's a really great slasher movie and a new movie. But I feel like I would say like generally like the kids that were at at the show tonight are probably all like really into kind of the Bloomhouse horror movies that come out, and also way into the Terrifier films that come out because of their age group and what those movies are kind of focused on. And I'm not really a big fan of a lot of those movies, to be honest, because I feel like they're all fireworks and there's no substance behind any of them. No real story, no real atmosphere. It's just kind of like, violence for the sake of violence, which I love copious amounts of violence. I love that shit. I love practical effects. I love gratuitous sex. I love, gore. I love all of those things that you want from a horror movie. But I think the classic shit has has more heart. I think a lot of those in comparison to say at least those two movies, because I do think there are some new films. Or no, I should say in comparison to the Terrifier films, which I'm not a fan of, but I do really love. I do really think In a Violent Nature is a great movie. But like that generational of kids that made that movie, the Terrifier franchise, huge, huge, and and in some ways it's kind of inspiring because that movie was made for nothing. It's truly, truly independent, and they've gone on to become huge. But I would assume or think that, for instance, these kids tonight were are probably all into those kinds of films, and a lot of the Bloomhouse films that come out, which I'm not a big fan of because they are wicked hit or miss. They're kind of like the Disney of horror. They just kind of turn out these movies. Sometimes they get something really good. They've done the Jordan Peele movies, which are fantastic. But then they're up to like, I don't know, The Conjuring 15, and it's like never ending, and they make all of this crap, The Wolfman. And so I typically think, okay, these kids are into these movies, but here they are watching if you're a horror fan and if you're into slasher movies, the Black Christmas is like the godfather of that. Like it's such an integral piece. It's such an integral part to that genre. Without movies like Maniac or Terror or Black Christmas, the genre would probably not exist, or it would be completely different. I really believe that. And to see these kids digging this really old school shit to where, to see, this is like the real origins of this beloved style of horror, and especially with slasher movies. And I think, and these kids were totally digging it. And again, at the end of the movie, overhearing some people talk, the general consensus that I kind of got was that most people there had never seen it. So, and they were totally into it. And it was interesting too because like as I was getting there, and I sat in, sitting down, and I found a really good seat. I got there early enough for the movie. I got there about 20 minutes before the movie starts. I found a great seat, and it was super comfortable. And getting situated, and chatting a little bit with some, a few people, whatever. Um, and then all these kids started coming in, and they were like, super hyper and talking away like kids do and teenagers do. And I was a little bit worried that were they gonna like do that during the entire movie, like talking about stuff that was not related to the movie. If they're into the movie, that's different, like screaming at the movie or yelling at the movie, like how it used to be back in the Grindhouse days. Then I'm all about that. But I was worried that it wasn't going to be that kind of a crowd, and that these kids were going to be just like talking all this smack that kids do during the movie. But the minute the movie started, they were super silent, and they were totally, I could tell they were totally engrossed in this movie. Because, for all intents and purposes, Black Christmas is kind of a slow movie. It's a slow burn, but it's so fucking good. It's so goddamn suspenseful, and it just builds and builds and builds, and it's super creepy. I think Black Christmas is legitimately a scary movie. Like, I think it's generally a scary movie. The whole atmosphere is super unsettling. Because as much as I love horror films and slasher movies, movies that are generally scary, that stick with you and get under your skin and create a real, vibe, it doesn't really happen all that much. Like, a lot of horror films can be really great, entertaining. It could be great practical effects, but they're not gonna be like. It's not gonna be the situation of where they generally creep you out, and they can still be awesome and super fun. But when you have a movie that generally gets under your skin, of where you kind of want to keep a light on before you go to bed or while you go to bed, that's a whole different thing. And I generally feel like Black Christmas is one of those movies. So, yeah, what a cool experience. I just wanted to, when I came home, I was, pretty excited. I've been thinking about the whole thing, and I was like, you know what, I kind of want to just make a video about it because it was my thoughts. And it's not like my first time seeing this movie, seeing Black Christmas, because I've seen it a shit ton of times. Um, I'm at a point now where I've seen it where I can't remember how many times I've seen it, so now I know it's a lot. Because I did a show on like the Kill Bill movies, and I've like when I saw the whole bloody affair, and like the first one, I probably had seen about 5 times altogether. The second one I only seen like twice. But once you get past 10, 9 or 10, then it's like a blur, and you just like you can't count the actual amount of times you've seen the movie. And for me, Black Christmas is past that number, so it's at a point now where I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen it because it's so damn good. So yeah, it was a really fun experience, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they'll do next. Because yeah, it's an hour drive, but I totally thought it was worth it. Because when the hell else are you gonna go and see a movie like Maniac or Black Christmas in a pretty nice little spot? So, fuck it. So I just want to do a quick video on this pretty fun and surprisingly really cool experience of going to see it up in Bangor, Black Christmas. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.